G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph here, I'm over here. I have encountered 6 issues with the Nikon Z9. Yep, 6. And I'm going to talk about the 6th and the strangest one right at the end of this video. When you buy a Z9, you spend an exorbitant amount of money on it. This cost me 9,000 Australian dollars. You can work that out in your part of the world. So you're very excited. So I go down and I'm on the first couple of weeks of shooting. It's new, I haven't taken out a lot. I'm on the beach and I'm shooting a sunrise. And the sunrise wasn't that spectacular. This is what it looked like, yeah, wow. And as I'm shooting this, what happens is the exposure alters an entire stop between shots. So I take 3 or 4 shots, and then I go and take another shot, and the exposure's bumped up an entire stop of exposure without changing the shutter speed, the f-stop, or the ISO, manually or automatically. The settings are exactly the same, as is the matrix metering setting, but the exposure is bumped up an entire stop. So I'm starting to get sus. So I asked the lads who I'm shooting with, have you ever encountered this before? And they're like, no. Nikon user, Canon, Sony, Fuji film users, far out. Now it was perhaps at that stage where I thought, oh, we've got a problem, I should contact Nikon. But I didn't. Instead, we went on to number 2. And number 2 was that it falls out of playback. So I'm at an event, I'm shooting, it's all going well, and I want to play back and see how I'm going. So I play back and I start scrolling through the different shots. I use the back wheel to scroll through, so I'm scrolling through the different shots that I've taken, and all of a sudden it clicks out of playback and goes back to shooting mode. Like I must have touched something else, and so I go back into playback, and I have this button, function 1 button, set to playback, makes it much easier when you're shooting. So I go back into playback, I'm playing back through the images, and lo and behold, it flicks out again. And then I'm very careful, I go back into playback, and I'm making sure I'm not touching any other buttons, and yes, it flicks back. It's been a common occurrence. I'm like, is it firmware at this stage, or is there a problem with the camera? And welcome to Balcony Edit Cam. I know, right? I should say that I've used the firmware updates and updated the camera all the way throughout, including the latest one. So there's no qualms about whether the firmware needs to catch up with the programming on the computer processor, with the exception that maybe some of these bugs have brought to light some further issues that you are struggling with as well as me. Please tell me about it down below. Now let's go back to the pool. And then I encounter the most significant issue by a long way that drives me crazy. So I'm at the Pacific Air Show on the Gold Coast. It's the first time it's ever happened. On the first day I took my Z8 and it didn't miss a beat. The Z8 is the best camera I've ever owned by a long stretch. And then the next day I thought I will give the Z9 a whirl, see how that keeps up. Should be the same as the Z8. And what happens is the planes do these incredible sequences, and a number of times they pass in the middle. And so I'm shooting, I've got a Tamron 150-600, an FTZ2 adapter on. I'm shooting a very high shutter speed, and I'm shooting on 20 raw frames a second. So we're banging them off. The Z8 didn't miss, like, so I'm shooting with the Z9. And as the planes are about to crash, like this moment, point of clarity, they weren't actually going to crash, but it looked like they were. I've snapped the perfect shot. Nose to nose, tip to tip, propeller to propeller, just the perfect shot. And I look at my camera and it's there. It's on the screen. I'm looking at it, the screen's frozen. The planes are on the screen, the settings are around the screen, and I'm like, something's not right. And so I start to move and jiggle this around, bit of a shutter button action, using the joystick to move it around, trying to get my control panel to go to the next photo, going on the playback. Nothing works. It's entirely frozen. I know, I'm as disappointed as you are. No, I'm way more disappointed. So what happens after about 30 seconds, I didn't want to turn it off because I didn't want to lose anything. After about 30 seconds, the camera goes back to complete normal. Like, whew, oh, just got my heart, bit of a flutter. I go back to have a look at the shots, and the entire sequence of shots vanished. Like, what? That was a once in a lifetime, well, once a year. I could probably pull it off next year, but that perfect shot that I remember seeing with my mind's eye, gone forever. That happened 3 or 4 times. If I had my Z8 with me, because I was trying to carry light, so if I had my Z8 with me, I absolutely would have swapped them in and out. But at this stage, I'm starting to get, well, a little bit angry. Well, if you're liking this content so far in this beautiful, beautiful setting that we're in, you need to go to somebody else's YouTube channel, because This is a rarity for me, and I'm stoked to bring you here. But if some of the content or even some of the humorous comments throughout are helpful to you, please subscribe to this video. I'm in the Mariner Shores Resort in Burleigh. It's a staycation because of this cool thing that happened to us. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So kids have been at school, I've been at work, but in between we get to do this. Come on. So let's go on to issue 4. And issue 4, see that? Took one finger and made it into 4 because we're issue 4. Issue 4 was, we got a lot of lightning storms. And so I go out to shoot a lightning storm. I turn the camera on, I dial in the settings. And the settings are like, I use about an 8-second exposure. I was mucking about with a 4 to 8 f-stop, and the ISO was around about, because lightning's really tricky because the exposure changes so rapidly and massively, very, very quickly. And so I'm mucking about with that. And so I've got it good to go. And then I go to change, I go to, I think, review my shot to see, make sure it's all good. I take a shot, review the shot, and it comes back and it's completely reset the settings to what I started with. So I started with high speed settings, not for lightning photography. I went to slow shutter speeds. I take a look, I take a shot, I go back, and the settings have completely reverted. 3 or 4 times the settings completely reverted to what they were previously. Yep, 3 to 4 times. That's not right. Cameras aren't supposed to do that, especially very expensive cameras. But let's move on to issue 5, because the fun hadn't stopped there, and then we're going to culminate in the extravaganza of all extravaganzas. So issue number 5, I'm like, all right, I can handle that changing. I'll just work against it. Let's put the interval timer on. And so I wanted an interval timer that would shoot with second gaps the lightning for the duration of that evening. And we got some banger shots out of my Z8, because the interval timer on the Z9 didn't work. It didn't work. It just packed it in. It just said, nah, we're not playing today. And it would take one shot and then jump out of interval timer. Now I know how an interval timer works on the Nikon because I made a video about it here, which you can check out, but on the Z9 it did not work. I don't think they get many YouTubers here, because the staff, like, that have been working around this morning, because it's pretty early in the morning, they've looked at me like I am some strange beast from an alternate universe, and honestly, quite rightly so. So it might be worth, at this stage, answering the question you've been asking, how long have I had it for? And I've had it for about 14 months, the Z9, and I really enjoyed this camera. I don't keep it in my camera bag very much. I actually keep it at home. I use it for my studio work and for various other jobs like that, but I don't keep it like in the rough and tumble of my bag like I do with all my other cameras, which leads me to issue number 6. Yes, the one you've all been waiting for. Check it out. Eyepiece, it's popped off. And not only is it popped off, it's stretched off. I cannot for the life of me get this back in, because it's clamped in and somehow it's popped off. Now I get that with a camera that's been knocked around, that's been used heaps, and it's been pretty rugged in the way it's taken place, but this, just disappointing. This was the icing on the cake after everything else went wrong, and that's the things I've talked about have happened in this sequence. So when I bought this, I registered this with Nikon on their website, which extends their warranty from 1 year to 3 years. It gives you an extra 2 years, providing you buy it from one of their recognized resellers, which I did. And so now I'm going to go through the process of seeing if they can fix this for me, and I will keep you updated as to that process and how it goes. I hope this video has been helpful, especially if you've been having some of these issues. Feel free to contact me in the comments below, and I'll tell you how it's gone with reaching out to Nikon. Because previously, when I've had an issue with my Z6, I was taking a waterfall shot one day, and I've just done this to autofocus on this big black blob. They said I used excessive force on the screen, and they wanted me to pay, I think it was around $400 to send in the camera, and then they were going to charge me. That was to look at it, and then they were going to charge me to fix it. So my Z6 has a big black blotch, purple blotch here, which I have to explain to people when I'm walking them through the camera. So it's quite annoying that you would spend this much on a camera and these things would happen, but things break. I understand that. So I'm going to send it away to Nikon, and we're going to see what comes of it. Thanks for watching, you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, you enjoyed the pool, and you were slightly disappointed that I didn't fall in the pool and I didn't drop my camera in the pool, then that's worth a like and a subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. They get many YouTubers here because the staff think, oh boy, that's not good. Okay, let's go again.